Hello everyone, and welcome to the first video that I'm recording during Content Week, with the one, the only Sora. Say hello.
Hello. Long time no see.
Yeah, we've definitely never recorded another video before in this generation. Certainly not one that's coming out after this video will be coming out. So, today we have the inaugural episode of The Price is Wrong, where we do kind of the opposite of what we did, what I did with a few different coaches last season, and look at low-tier Pokemon that were good in Value Town. This is instead to look at high-tier Pokemon that no one picked. And to discuss why we think that no one picked these Pokemon in either of the pools. So it's not like conjecture. This is hard evidence. A sample size of 2, that's representative, you know. You're a professional man, Sora. You agree? Sample size 2, that's generally where you would start considering it representative, right?
Yeah, as a math minor, I definitely, I think I'm qualified to agree with your statement.
Yep.
I've done the training, you know.
Yep. You're an expert statistician. So yes, the price is wrong. And today we'll be looking at 4 Pokemon that were in either the 9 or 8 point tier on a scale of 1 to 9 within VBL-S this season, and why we think they went undrafted in both pools, and suggest that that's because they're wrong. And of course, as you can see, I have my beautiful co-host Sora here, front and center, with the giant arrow pointing to both iterations. And a fake Happy Gilmore reference. This isn't even the costume he was wearing in that scene, but I didn't want to crop out a new picture when there was already a cropped one. Our sole Pokemon in 8 that didn't go drafted in either pool was Gastrodon. This Pokemon sees a significant, well, most of these 4 Pokemon we'll be talking about see a significant amount of usage on ladder, and yet weren't picked up by any of the coaches. So it would be interesting to look at why. This first one, it's got water and ground type. Its ability Storm Drain makes it immune to water moves and redirect it away from your opponents, as well as giving a special attack boost. It's one of the ground types, one of the water types that still has access to Muddy Water, so despite losing Scald, it can still do damage without relying on Hydro Pump. It's got pretty decent coverage, it's got good support moves. It's got Recover was nerfed this gen, but I don't think that going from 16 PP Recover to 8 PP Recover matters that much in Draft or in Standard, unless you're just doing Stockpile. Yeah?
Yeah, and there's not very many Pokemon with pressure, so unless you're playing like a 20-minute game, you're probably not going to run out of Recover PP.
Yeah.
Yeah, this Pokemon is, I think it's been very popular, especially in the past where water types were more common. I think here it's maybe just a little bit too expensive, based on how many really good water types there are. Like you have Rotom Wash, which I think, if I remember correctly, went pretty late. Yeah, so
there are 2 things that stick out to me, right? Rotom Wash went a lot earlier in one of the pools than the other, but so there are waters, and some of the waters are very good, but there is just in draft, it's a lot easier to counter team strong waters, especially with Terra existing. And I think that Gastrodon can be a strong water. I drafted it in another league where it was significantly cheaper, but when you're working on tight point constraints and you are, you know, I think a lot of teams aren't going to wind up being weak to water simply as a result of them just not being very good, you know.
Yeah, and it's probably not worth using 8 of your points just to counter one type that isn't going to be, you know, you could use Terastallization as a way to counter against water,
or to turn into a water type if you want a water type offense. Gastrodon is also like, its physical frailty is a really significant issue in this current format. I think that's another big thing, is that a lot of really strong attackers are clicking offensive spread fizz moves, and that is going to be blunting Gastrodon a lot. And its weird speed, its middling speed is definitely not a great thing, because isn't going to love going into Trick Room. It's fine, but your opposing Pokemon are basically always going to be able to beat it with Room Service, Iron Ball, or even their own slower Pokemon. And it is really going to be pressured on that physical side. There are relatively few good Wisp users, and a lot of them, again, don't really mind the opposing water types that much because of access to Terra. So I think that Terra not only allows opposing water types to beat Gastrodon, but also it allows your other Pokemon to beat opposing water types pretty reliably. So if you're not planning on surfing next to it to give it that attack boost, then you're not really doing that much. And even then, it just doesn't seem worth it at the price point that it was at, where it's taking, what, more than a tenth of your entire fund for the pool, I think. I can't do maths. Yeah, a lot more than a tenth.
Yes, a tenth would be like 6 points.
Yeah, a tenth is like 6 points. So this is taking, what, an eighth?
Sorry, I'm only a math minor. I'm not a major.
Apparently, it's taking about a seventh of your entire draft fund for a Pokemon that is under, like, it's not immediately very strong with that 9-2 special attack, 83 attack. Its abilities are only so good. Sticky Hold and Sand Force, its other two abilities. Sand Force is not going to be super relevant in this format. Like Tyranitar and stuff are nice, but sharing Grass Weakness with basically every other non-Houndstone Sand Abuser is not amazing. And my brain was dying. And Sticky Hold, Knockoff is actually not super prevalent in this format, and I'm not really sure what item you'd care enough to run Sticky Hold for. So it is really just bad physical defense, even coupled with decent special defense, and the fact that your physical defense is okay, coupled with the offensive options that it provided not being anywhere near as relevant as it was in previous gens, combined with the fact that a lot of stuff likes to Terra to Grass type anyway, so you feel pressure to Terra yourself. It is really awkward for Gastrodon in this current format, so I just don't think that it is worth taking at its current price, even despite the fact that it's one of probably the best grounds that are out there, simply because there aren't a lot of good ground types.
Yeah, so what do you think would be a fair price for this?
Look, I mean, I'd consider it at 7, and I'd absolutely take it at 6, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think just right now, I looked at Gastrodon when I was doing my plans, and I'm like, huh. I mean, it fits in well. Water types are broken. I drafted it in another team where I think it was the equivalent of 7 points, but it's close, like, on the borderline of 6 and 7, because it was an 18-point league, and obviously we just did 9. And I thought it was really good there, but I didn't wind up picking it up here just because it is just kind of not doing as much. A lot of the good water types also felt overpriced, or us buying Muddy Water because they don't have access to Scald, so you're not doing anything to protect your partner. And Terra is just kind of a nightmare for you. It stops your opponent Terra watering, I think. I think if you have Gastrodon or another Storm Drain Mon, your opponent is going to be a lot less likely to want to Terra Water. But I don't know if that's worth it.
Yeah, definitely not for 1/7 of your entire draft's value.
Yeah. Just the expense for a mon that is good, but it's not quite good enough. I just think spread moves are so much better in this period of the format compared to previous formats that we've played in, that having the bad fizz def comes to hurt a lot more than it has in previous formats. But I also don't know that I wouldn't have drafted it at the equivalent of 8 last format either, right? Like, would you have taken this mon at 17 last gen?
No.
Yeah, so I don't really know what wound up causing it to move up. So, next mon, Gothitelle. 9 was the maximum points, functionally equivalent to 18. 18, 19, 17, whatever, yeah, around that area. Most expensive Pokemon on the board. This is closer to a 1/6 of your entire draft budget on one mon. And it's just not a particularly, like, Gothorita was in 5, and then Gothita was, I think, in 2. And both of them do the same thing Gothitelle does, just less strong psychics, which Goth doesn't even always run. Like, So the main value of Goth is its access to Shadow Tag, right? So
yeah, it's a fairly complete package as a supportive Pokemon, right? It can Trick Room Prison, it's got Shadow Tag, it's got Fake Out.
I think it has access to Charm as well, and potentially Flatter, which it, okay, not Flatter. Flatter's the plus attack one. I think it has the one that reduces special attack as well. Might have Tickle, but so it's okay. It's got Helping Hand, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if it might have lost that this format. I think a few Pokemon lost Helping Hand this format. But yeah, Trick Room is really strong. Fake Out's really strong. Hypnosis in Trick Room can really swing games. But beyond that, it's just a very one-note mon, and it's not very interesting. Very easy to counterplay. I played against one, and I just ran 2 taunt Pokemon so that I could taunt it through Mental Herb, and then they lost because they didn't get Trick Room up.
Yeah, I drafted Gothorita because it's like, oh, it has like all the same tools as Gothitelle, but it's around half the price.
Yeah.
So
and it's bulkier.
Yeah, with the Violet.
Yeah. So it's just Shadow Tag is okay. The competitive is not strong enough to really give it a secondary mode for how much you're paying for it. I think this mon is... I wouldn't pay... I don't know, I'd maybe pay 7 for it. I definitely consider it at 6, but like I don't even know if I'd take this at 8. Like, it's a very kind of... I mean, it's not one note, but like all of the stuff it does, there's some stuff it does really well, and then some stuff that it doesn't really do in a way that's significant enough for you to be worried about it when it's on the opposing side of the field. Like, its Psychic is not going to hit anything for good damage unless that mon is already weak to it. That mon can Terra away from it. This mon doesn't really benefit from Terra itself. The considerations I saw for Terraing it, it's you can Terra Ghost so that you're immune to Fake Out, or you can Terra Dark so that you're immune to Prankster Taunt, but like you're still not immune to regular speed Taunt, and this mon is not fast, and it's also not slow enough to be great in Trick Room. It just seems worse than, say, Farigiraf or Armarouge, which I think we had both of them at 7, though possibly Armarouge at 8. I drafted it, so I should remember.
They were both 7.
They're both 7, yeah.
Yeah, they're both probably better Pokemon in general, too, so...
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think Farigiraf and Gothitelle are pretty comparable, and I think that Armarouge is notably better. Indeedee-M was also in 7. It also went undrafted in both pools, and it does a similar thing to Goth, where, in terms of being able to set up Trick Room pretty reliably and having access to Fake Out. But it didn't get picked up. I think there's some really good low tier options for Trick Room. So many Pokemon got Trick Room this gen. Like Klefki got access to Trick Room, Spiritomb got access to Trick Room, Indeedee-F got access to Trick Room. I think there are a few other mons that got access to Trick Room which didn't previously. And I think that really just meant that Gothitelle is you're not getting that much, and you're asking for a lot for 9 points. Nearly a sixth of your entire budget on a mon that is a support mon that can still lose to opposing support, can still lose to opposing offense, and it really just pressures your opponent in its ability to stop them switching, but they can build around that and they can play around that. Like just run U-turn,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really doesn't feel like it belongs in a tier with all the pseudo legendaries and like the top tier support.
Yeah, I mean it's 3 tiers above Goodra.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's an okay mon. It just does not fit where it stands. It's got a lot of options, but those options are nowhere near as good as they were in previous gens. Fake Out is so much worse because of access to Covert Cloak and the fact that Bruxish came back and Farigiraf was released with Armatail, so Fake Out is a lot less reliable than it was, which is one of the main boons Gothitelle has. I think if it had Perish Song like Mega Gengar does, it would be better. But it doesn't, so it's just not that good, It simply is just not cutting the mustard at 9. Most of the Pokemon that we're looking at are in this 9 category, and I think they actually all represent fairly different niches, but they all have fairly similar things where they are just kind of outcompeted by other Pokemon who do different but similar things, and then they have a very strong niche that the other Pokemon don't need to replicate. Like, it's not worth that price just to have that extra niche. Like, you know, just pick up Dugtrio. That's a funny mon, right? So, next on the price is wrong. Torkoal. This mon sets sun. We put it to 9 when the photosynthesis mons we had in the plants, and we didn't move it back down after they were banned. I think that was a mistake. The only chlorophyll mons are what? Scovillain, Lilligant, I think there are Sawsbuck. I think there might be another one.
Tropius.
Tropius, yep, that's
a Pokemon.
That's the mon that you look at that and you're like, damn, this justifies me spending 9 points on Sunsetter. So, elephant in the room. We did literally just record a video that will be coming out later with Torkoal. Torkoal is really, really strong. However, Jumpluff is also in the format. That's right, yeah, Jumpluff is great because it beats opposing Lilligant teams, because you can just sleep powder the Torkoal. Are any of the other Pokemon in the tier? Leafeon has access to Chlorophyll. Yeah, so Scovillain is a really good abuser. Access to fire type, access to fire in the sun is really nice. But one of the big things about Torkoal is that it's like their Trick Room option, and Scovillain is not great in Trick Room. A lot of the other Trick Room Chloro abusers are not great in Trick Room. So that's kind of a significant demerit on that. Eruption is strong, but Wide Guard's very accessible. Terrafire, you know, is nice and all, but it's still committing a terror to something that isn't defensive. There's a lot of priority in the format. The priority is all very strong. Sorry, there's not a lot of priority. There's a lot of priority that's really good that a lot of other teams will be picking up. Like, you know, even with its good defense stat, it's still taking a lot from a Tinted Lens first impression from low kicks, and then its eruption is not doing that much, especially if the low kicks then tears into a type that resists. There's a lot of weird counterplay to eruption now that wasn't previously, and it just doesn't really do it enough. You're spending too much on, because Torkoal is the most expensive mon of these options, simply because you also then need to spend money on the Pokemon that you're drafting alongside Torkoal to abuse its sun, right?
Yeah, you have to, like, if you want Torkoal Lilligant, that's 14. That's a 14-point pick, basically.
Yeah, you want Torkoal and Scoville, I think that's 16, or it might be 15.
They're both 5. Lilligant,
they're both 5?
and
Scoville.
Yeah, Lilligant,
okay.
And Scoville are 5.
And like Soulspark, I think was 3, and it's not good. Like, you know, I think just so many Pokemon that aren't good that still have come with a cost. Some Flora, if you want to hyper commit to Trick Room, is good. Some Flora is really good, but you still need to then like a Trick Room setter and to pivot both of those slots out. It's like you're asking for a lot when you're spending 9 points on a Pokemon. It just needs too much support as a Pokemon that is also a support mon, and it's strong. It's really strong. It just isn't that strong with so much counterplay existing, and the fact that you need to commit a lot to get it to go off. So that's why I think Torkoal went undrafted. I take this mon at 8. I think part of the issue is a lot of the good Trick Room setters are also expensive, so that could be a bit awkward.
The 7-point tier is like the Trick Room tier. That's where a lot of the good Trick Room setters are.
Yeah.
So if you want one of those in Torkoal, then yeah, that's 16 points.
Yeah, so you're cutting through a lot of your points very quickly to get the team that works around this. That said, a team that works around this would be good. You know, Lilycole's probably worth 14. It definitely would be worth 13. Torkoal, I think, is the one that's closest to being reasonably priced, but I do think it's too much. I think that this price made a lot more sense when Photosynthesis was in the format and we had to, you know, worry about another 6 mons that functionally are similar to Chloro or Solar Power. Like, Charizard isn't even legal. Is there a Solar Power mon besides Sunflora that's legal? Tropius. Tropius is not good.
Everything comes back to Tropius.
Harvest, there's Tropius again, and there's Arboliva. I don't believe Executor or Trevenant are in the format. So look, there are things that can abuse Sun, they just aren't worth the incredible degree of commitment compared to other combinations.
Do you think it's likely that at some point, since in both pools, both Torkoal and Lilligant are free agents, I guess you could call them, do you think it's likely that someone would pick them up at some point, or do you think they'll
I wouldn't be
stay
shocked.
untouched?
I wouldn't be shocked. A lot of people aren't loving their teams. I think there's been a great degree of pessimism. So I wouldn't be shocked to see people pick it up. It's 2 transactions. You'd have another 2 after that, and it is a mode that people have to consider. I did Torkoal Lilligant in our BDSP draft. It was okay. I wound up using Shift Tree more often, though, just because it has access to Fake Out, and people ran Wide Guard anyways. So yeah, Torkoal, good, but not absurdly broken. Like, some of the mons in 9 are just ridiculous, like Goldengo. So yeah, just not sure that Torkoal quite cuts the mustard there when it is a lot more of a commitment than anything else.
Goldengo is actually 8.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, I take it back. VBL is just badly. What the what?
Yeah,
okay.
Is it 8?
In every other like VGC draft I've seen in, including in one of the divs here, Goldengo has gone first overall when it's been like 18 points. Why was it 8? It's the best mod.
It's on 30% of teams or something like that in VGC right now.
Yeah, no, that's insane. Okay. Anyways, on to our last one, Gyarados. Gyarados is a funny guy. He's got Dragon Dance. Oh, sorry, the other thing about Torkoal. Torkoal's on a lot of teams on ladder, but that's because it doesn't come at an opportunity cost, and the reason that it's worse in draft is because it comes at an opportunity cost. That's what I wanted to say. If your opponent has... Oh yeah, the other thing I wanted to say is that Prankster is really good and a lot cheaper, and a lot of Prankster Sunsetters are really good. So you don't run them with Lilligant, but you can run, Sableye with Scovillain and still functionally have a strong Sun option, but then you also have the ability to use Scovillain as like a Rage Powder mon without like having the hyper commit, you know? You can get the Sun mode a lot cheaper without it being as strong, but still strong. Gyarados. It was up here because people were worried that it would like Terra Ground or something and be really good. It's got access to Intimidate and Moxie, but you can't run both of them at the same time, and Clear Amulet means that one of them doesn't work that well. It also wants to run Clear Amulet, but also wants to run Covert Cloak because it kind of relies on setup. I know in our BDSP draft, I think ran like a unboosted Life Orb and Choice Band variants of Gyarados so that it would be able to get damage out without relying on Dragon Dance, but without that, it really does like that Dragon Dance a lot. And without Flying Stab, you're going to be wanting to Terra Fly it. I think people have also been running like Terra Fire. Like, it's okay, it's good mon, but it just at 9, Baxcala was the same price, Tyranitar's the same price. I just don't know that I would, like, I was looking at 8 and at 7, I'm like, I consider taking Castro at 8 over Gyarados at 8.
Yeah, I think Gyarados is interesting, but yeah, at 9 when there's so many incredibly powerful Pokemon there. I mean, even an 8, like
yeah, exactly. Like,
I would take probably Dragonite.
I would absolutely take Dragonite first. I'd absolutely take Dragapult first. I don't remember what other Dragon Dances are in it, but like, it's just it's not as immediately physically strong as a lot of the other Pokemon. It doesn't have as good support. It really just has Intimidate, and I think maybe Helping Hand, but maybe not even that. And like, there are other better Intimidators that are more immediately strong, that are faster, that don't use Terra so that they don't just die. Like, Gyarados' special defense is okay, and its Fizz Def is okay with Intimidate factored in, but that it means it's bad with Clear Amulet. Or it's bad if you want to run Moxie, and if you're not running Moxie, you're probably only getting 1 KO and then like 80% on the next mon instead of 1 KO and then another KO, you know? Yeah. I just think that Gyarados is priced really expensively because people were worried about it, but didn't really factor in how much other Pokemon do exactly what it does, but way better, and how many other Pokemon can stop it from doing what it wants to do.
Yeah, like you can Terra Ground Earthquake, or you can just pick Garchomp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Garchomp doesn't really want to Dragon Dance, you know, or Swords Dance. And Swords Dance is faster than Dragon Dance. Like, there's... Even in the same sets, a lot of the other Pokemon have greater depth because they're not relying on Terra to get two good moves that they can click. And they are immediately stronger. Or their speed allows them to function as being immediately stronger on account of being able to get 2 hits when Gyarados may only be able to get 1. So that's just the main issue with Gyarados. It just doesn't hit the roll quite as well as people were worried it was going to. Simply because Terra is really strong, but committing a Mon to a mandatory Terra captain is way less good than having a mandatory Dynamax captain, which itself wasn't very good. You know, Max Gyarados is not the same as, you know, G-Max Wildfire Charizard.
Yep, exactly.
So, I think that goes through our Mons. There were a few other Mons in the tier below that, at 7 that we considered talking about, but I think a lot of them were either overpriced because people worried about them, or were reasonably priced and just no one felt like they fit into their teams. So, like, Medicham and Gallade were both there. I don't know how Medicham and Gallade could be in the same thing, where Medicham is Gallade, but stronger and with access to Fake Out. So I don't really know why they were in the same tier. But both of them are good Mons, but they have weaknesses that are very annoying in the current format. Ghost is really annoying, Fairy is really annoying, Flying is really annoying. So that's why I think that and they're relatively frail, especially on the physical side for Gallade. Weavile was there. I think Weavile's a good Mon. I would consider taking it. I already have another Dark type, and that's why I didn't take it, but I would take it there. What were some of the other Mons?
Indeedee-Male was in there.
Indeedee-Male. Yeah, it's fine. It's just that you're probably going to want to have a strong priority Mon on your team, and then spending 7 points, which is more than a tenth of your value on something that doesn't let you click priority moves, is not great.
Yeah, and then there was Krookodile.
Krookodile sucks. It's just not very good. Like the thing is, I was saying about Gyarados. Imagine if Gyarados didn't have Dragon Dance. Krookodile doesn't even have knockoff right now. It's really crap Mon. You can run it with Meowscarada and then like Terra, Fire, or Grass Hit so that you get Anger Point. That's about it. Is there any other Mon?
Yeah, Houndstone. I don't know if you mentioned Houndstone.
Oh yeah, Houndstone. Houndstone is another thing with like the Sand Overcommit, where in singles or in 6v6 doubles, it's really good because Last Respects can become a high base power, but if your other 3 Pokemon die, so you have 200 base power Last Respects, you can still only click it into one of their Pokemon at a time. Also, I think in singles, one of my opponents Choice Band Last Respected my Bishop, and my Bishop lived after they'd lost 5 other Mons, so it just wasn't that much damage.
Yeah, it also has Fluffy, but
sure, but it's slow and it's not that bulky and it's not strong.
Yeah. It's pretty good singles Mon. I think it got.
Yeah, no. So like it's broken in singles, right? Like not in the sense of it's good, in the sense of Last Respects is a 300 base power stab move on a Ghost type that has access to fighting moves. Like it's just absurdly strong. However, that doesn't mean it's a good Pokemon, that just means it's an unhealthy Pokemon. It's like how Dracovish was absurdly broken in singles, because you had to run a specific counter to it, or you lost to it. And that's just not healthy for a ladder, but you can play around it in draft a lot easier, because you have already drafted those options, and you can choose to bring them. But yeah, Last Respects is dumb, but it's not that dumb in full Mon, because it's just not as strong. Even at 150, after you lost 2 Mons and you have 2 Mons there, it's strong, but it's not strong enough that I would spend, you know, a tenth of my draft cost on one of my 11 Mons, when it already needs sand support to get off the ground, you know?
Yeah, you don't want your master plan to be let your entire team die so that one Pokemon can maybe sweep for you.
Yeah.
Because then if they counter that one Pokemon, your plan is kind of toast.
Exactly. It just doesn't seem that consistent to me. So yeah, that I think is us having gone through all of the stuff that we thought it was pertinent to. So we looked at the Mon in 8, the 3 main Mons in 9, and we briefly covered the Mons in 7. Leave a comment down below if you think that any of the other Mons that were overpriced but people did wind up picking up, and if where you guys think that the Mons that we looked at today should potentially have been tiered, or if you think that they're fine where they were, then tell us why you didn't draft them, and what Pokemon you'll be dropping to pick them up in transactions. Otherwise, we'll know that you're a liar. Thank you guys for watching. Please check out Sora down below, and VBL out.
See ya.